you go.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We listen, guide, connect small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs, sharing knowledge and stories why I started Telling It Like It Is. It is live. If you have any questions, ask away. If you're watching this after the fact on a social media channel, put your questions in there and they will be answered. I would like to thank Bessie again for sponsoring us. They sell 100% grass-finished Alberta beef, naturally raised chicken, and sashimi grade seafood. It's vacuum sealed in pack size for your convenience. Look at their website. It's in the comments section or it's scrolling along the bottom. I am excited about today's guest, Vanisha Breault, founder of the Terminator Foundation. Vanisha, thank you for joining me. And how are you today?
I'm good, Jade. It's awesome to be here. Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is long overdue. We've known each other for a while. I always like talking about how we met, and Derek Fraser introduced us. Derek's been on the show. He's such a champion of so many nonprofits and charities. So I want to give a shout out to Derek and thank you for all the work you do. And
yeah,
obviously,
he's on our board. Derek's on our board.
That's a good board member.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's probably time I have him back on here. I mean, I know I had him on and we kind of discussed how charities might have to pivot during the pandemic here, and it was a really good discussion that we had.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a pretty wise dude.
There's no doubt there. No doubt there. So what I'll do is I'll give a brief introduction here, Vanisha, and then we'll get after it.
Yeah.
So it takes gusto to live your recovery out loud. And that is how Vanisha has pledged to live her life, recognizing her community as a chance to impact change on local and a national level. She's a crusader for social justice. Her personal story of addiction is a motivating force behind her dream of breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health issues, a goal that could not be timelier. She founded the Terminator Foundation, a nonprofit organization helping youth overcome addiction. Its motto, the truth is you can recover, drives a mission of triathlon, offering one-on-one coaching, training, support, mindfulness practices, and a guaranteed non-judgmental atmosphere. The foundation hosts an annual conference and several fundraisers to help support individuals and families impacted by addiction. Amid all of this, she has started a Ordinary Courage podcast, and we will talk about that later. But what I wanted to say, first of all, Vanisha, is I want to thank you for living your life out loud. It takes such courage and such a special person to do that. You and I are both very passionate about the mental wellness of this community. But for what you do is profound and impactful in our society. So please share your story with us. Whoa, she's gone. What happened? Oh no. Well, I hope she comes back. Anyways, I'll keep talking here until she relogs on. But, Vanisha and I met, and the Terminator Foundation was just something that I just was just drawn to from the get-go. Finding out all the addicts that she takes and trains and takes them from one addiction to another, and especially through the art of triathlon is something else. And again, when she lives as I said before, she lives it out loud. She's run through addiction. She has gone through that platform of getting the help and running that gauntlet and being there. So it's definitely something that takes a lot of courage when somebody sits there and has been there. And now she is back. Well, let's hope so. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Sorry.
That's okay. We got through the introduction, and that's technology, and you kind of adapt. So it was an excellent introduction, I think, and it kind of talked about where we left off. I just mentioned that it takes a lot to live your story out loud, and I was just thanking you for that and the courage that it takes. And did we lose you again? Maybe we have some problems with her camera. I am not sure. The joys of running through technology. I am going to just check this.
Oh, shoot. Jade, if you can hear me, I cannot see you or hear you. I don't know if you can see or hear me. It says that I'm live.
Oh, are you there now?
I am. I don't even know what happened. I could totally hear you just fine. And then I thought that you had minimized like my screen or something. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's because
You
I
know
could
what?
totally
It is
hear
what
you and see
it
you.
is.
I'm sorry.
No,
Nothing
no.
even came up on my screen. Like my internet connection's fine.
Yeah, it happens.
Technology.
That's the way we roll, right? We just laugh it off and keep on trucking. So
Oh my
no,
gosh.
I was
Is
just
that just like life, eh?
exactly. I
Someone
was
just
just
pulls the
telling
plug
people
on you.
about how you live it out loud. So before you can check it out later and what I talked about, but why don't you share your story with us?
Well, how much time do you have?
A lot of time. We got all the time you need.
Oh, um, like, are you looking more for just like my story in recovery, like where the whole out loud thing came from, or?
Yeah, talk about the out loud. I think that's very
Okay.
important.
So yeah, I'm in long-term recovery from alcoholism. And I guess, yeah, to jump kind of like right into my story there, where the whole out loud thing came from was uh well, to give a little background, so I pretty much I grew up in going to AA meetings. Like both my parents were alcoholics, so I had a very early introduction into the 12-step groups. And as everyone knows, like the the AA, the NA, like those 12-step groups, they're anonymous. They're anonymous groups. And way back then too, there was a lot of, there was a lot of shame, a lot of stigma associated with, being an alcoholic, being an addict, right? You didn't want to tell anybody that. And so where the whole out loud thing came from was several years ago now, because I had, long story short, I had been sober for years. Like I first sobered up when I was 18 years old. And then, so I was sober for almost a decade. And then I kind of had slowly started to drink again a little bit. And for all intents and purposes, I drank normally for several years. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't all of a sudden, but for time's sake, I wasn't drinking normally anymore. And so I ended up, getting sober again into recovery. And now I've just been sober for several years now. But the whole out loud thing started when one day I was working with a girlfriend, and she was helping me with my resume. I was looking for work and stuff like that. And I had come across this blog post by Glennon Doyle, and it was online, like for the whole world to see this blog post.
Yeah.
And I was reading in there, and she was talking about just her life and whatever. And all of a sudden, she started talking about being an alcoholic and having a mental breakdown and all of this stuff like that. Normally, you don't tell people that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that you keep private,
Yeah.
And reading that, um, it something in me turned on. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was like you have this dark room, and that's where you keep your shameful stuff that you don't want anyone to know. You keep the door closed, and it was like all of a sudden the door was flung open, the lights were turned on, and it gave me permission to kind of come out of the closet, so to speak, regarding my addiction. I'm an alcoholic. And so that's where the whole out loud thing came about. Because then after that, I had like a fire in me, and I was like almost like just an anger too at just this, almost like this injustice or something, at the shame and indignity that was associated with being an alcoholic, with someone struggling with addiction. And I, all of a sudden, it was just like throwing off this heavy blanket of shame, and like that you have to hide because, well, you're just nothing but a drunk, don't you know? And so that's when the whole, I had started my own out loud movement, you know, revolution for myself. And I just thought, I'm not going to be silent about this anymore. And I remember, even it was all of a sudden, it just all happened in that moment. And I wanted to even put it on my resume. Like, I'm an
Yeah,
alcoholic. Like, this is, we're amazing people. So
absolutely. Well, I mean,
that's where it started.
well,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot. And again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story out loud, because it's something that people don't do, and they're scared to, because of the stigmas that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to hide it, you have to keep it inside, you can't tell anybody. And I'm sure, as you said, it eats at you, and
Yeah.
it's not good for you as a person, as
No.
a family, as a father, as a friend, as a son, or whatever you are.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And then from there, that's when it gave me permission to totally embrace my own story, embrace even my childhood, embrace how I was raised, embrace just everything I've been through. And I just started to be way more open and outspoken about just everything. I just decided I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not hiding my story. Like, I'm not hiding it anymore. I'm just gonna, it is what it is. Like, it happened. These things happened. This is who I am. This was the family I was born into.
Yeah.
We don't get to choose those things,
No.
but we can choose what we do moving forward. And I just decided that I'm turning the light on all of this stuff. I've had it. It's enough.
Well, I mean, that's good. And obviously, as I've known you, and I've seen how passionate you are about it. Again, I'm talking with Vanisha, the founder of TerminatorFoundation.com. You can just click on the website in the comment section. So, how did you come up saying, "Oh my goodness, I need to found a charity"? Why triathlon? What did you figure that would? Why would that help?
Um, there again, just kind of my own personal journey. Terminator, when it started, it obviously wasn't Terminator.
Yeah.
Um, and it was there again. So I have 4 kids. They're not really kids anymore. They're pretty much all adults now. But my second oldest daughter, Eden, I ended up going through. Eden was ended up getting into drugs at an early age, and then it turned into a full-blown addiction. She ended up being on the street. She was addicted to heroin, fentanyl. She was using intravenously. It was literally like every parent's worst nightmare. And it was something that, you know, like you just don't think it will ever happen to you. You know what I mean? Because I had also tried to do everything I could to do all the right things as parents. That's who we are, right? We
Yeah.
want the best for our kids, right? And so, anyways, to see Eden go down that road of addiction and into total homelessness, she lived on the street. Um, it was horrific, and so, but it also showed me, because I had my own recovery journey, but I was more of like you could say like a functioning, it's sort of like an oxymoron, but like a functioning alcoholic. I still held a job, I paid my bills, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But to see Eden in, in that place where, she's homeless, and just the stigma and the shame, that it was a whole new level of shame and stigma. It was like shame and stigma on steroids, in within our society, embedded in our society. And when I say that, I mean at every level, our healthcare system, our everything, every level. And so it was going through that with Eden. That's where the Terminator Foundation started, because I mean, Eden wasn't even, it was like she wasn't even qualified as a human being anymore. She wasn't even looked upon as a human being, to the point where we would be at the hospital and she was in need of care, in need of a bed, a hospital bed. But it was like, she's just a junkie. Like, basic, like, get her out of here, take her home. Like, we don't have time for this kind of thing. And so just those levels of, yeah, just stigma, the stereotyping, all of that. And so that's, it was in that realm, in that's why I started the Terminator Foundation, because I came to realize after some time that I'm not the only parent going through this. There's actually a ton of families that are right now also feeling ashamed, feeling alone, feeling stigmatized, feeling less than, because they're going through the same thing with their kid. And so I started the run. It just started with the run, a 5K run. You know how we have the breast cancer awareness run every October, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to just kind of do that same sort of thing, but raise awareness for youth addiction, and just support for families and parents to, I just wanted to rally around families and go, like, you're not alone. Like, you're not a horrible parent. You know, none of us are perfect. You know what I mean? But that doesn't
Yeah.
make you a horrible parent because your child is struggling with addiction. I just wanted to scream that message from the mountaintops. And so that's how that started. And it was about 3 years into the youth addiction awareness run that, and it was at the worst time with my daughter Eden being out on the street. And for whatever reason, uh, I ended up training for a triathlon, like myself personally. And so I did a half Ironman in about 3.5 months, which was ridiculous because, one, I couldn't even swim. I didn't know how to swim. I didn't have a bike. I didn't even have a bathing suit. All I had were my runners because I was a runner. And I signed up to do a half Ironman. And it was going through that training of doing that half Ironman, having to learn to swim, um, and just putting my body through all of that physical and mental, because it's a huge mental game. While my daughter's out on the street and every day not knowing if she's dead or alive, when I'm going to hear from her, when I'm going to see her, um, and just what that did for me as a person in recovery, dealing with huge trauma, huge anxiety, stress, and all of that. And so it was going through that I realized, like, I was like, holy crap, this is transformational, because, and then so it was, yeah, so that's when it was after that experience. And I ended up running into one of the kids at ARC, Alberta Adolescent Treatment Center, that I had been putting Eden through. She'd gone through several times. And one of the girls there, Jilly, uh, she was like, Vanisha, I heard you're doing this triathlon. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, she was like, I freaking love to do that one day when I get out of here. And in that moment, literally, Try Terminator was born, like, in my heart, because I looked at Jilly and I was like, would you really, Jilly? Like, and she was like, F yeah, you know? So then I was like, okay, then when you get out of treatment, we're going to do it then. I'm coming back. We're going to do this thing. And then that fall, we launched the Try Terminator. And so that fueled my passion to take youth and young adults that are, because I thought, if an old gal like me, a grandma, a mom, if someone like me, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, if it can transform and revolutionize my life, what can it do for our youth? What can it do for our young people that don't feel like they have a purpose? They're struggling with drug and alcohol abuse. If we can take them to the finish line and they can because it's like literally you're watching yourself being transformed as you're learning to swim, and you're getting on the bike and you're running, and every week you're getting better, and every week you're getting stronger, and you can feel it. And your brain is like just exploding, it's coming alive. And then the next thing you know, you've got 2 weeks in, you've got 3 weeks in, you've got a month in, and you're sober. Like, you're sober, and you didn't think you could even put 24 hours together of sobriety. And now all of a sudden you're a month in and you're a freaking athlete to boot, and then 3 months later, 5 months later, you're crossing the finish line, having just completed a half Ironman. And that's what our athletes do. As soon as these kids, I call them kids, but they're anywhere from, you know, 14 up to 30, as soon as these kids register and sign up to join Terminator, we consider them athletes. I don't care if they're right off the street. I don't care if they have a meth addiction. I don't like, none of that matters to me. They're athletes. As soon as you sign on that dotted line, you're an athlete. You're in. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, we've got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
how that started. Yeah.
Wow. What a powerful, powerful story. And I know one of the people I respect most in this world in business, and he's my mentor, and his son went through ARC, and I volunteered there quite a bit with Doc Voss, and I like that program. I imagine it's still running. I haven't talked to him in some time, but every time I drive down McLeod there, I see the spot, I see the rink in the back there, and I know what they do to help people, and even a person went through there that played on our baseball team. He now lives in Edmonton, and I know he's, after going through that program, he has been 25 years, right? And he considers that saved his life. And
absolutely,
Again, I'm talking with Vanisha, the founder of Terminator Foundation. Click on the website in the comment section. Leo, thank you for your comment about someone close to you going through the same, and she's covering and doing great. That's awesome to hear. I'm sure there was probably a lot of ups and downs on your journey. It can't just be smooth sailing.
No, not at all. Like, you mean the journey with trying to grow Terminator kind of thing?
Yeah. So I guess, once you figured out from your that you've signed up, you've got your athletes, and you know what you're going to do with them. Never having a charity or a nonprofit is very difficult. That can't, obviously once you're always in recovery, and you're always going through that, has basically being there for other people, help that process.
Yeah, working with the athletes is the best part of the job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's totally what keeps me going. Has it been challenging? Absolutely. There's been times I'm like, I don't even know how we're gonna keep going. Like, there's been times where it looks like, by all, totally, like, you should just shut the doors, Vanisha, like, wrap it up. You tried. It's, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen. Just, struggling. There's been a lot of struggling. Absolutely. A lot. Like, it's been, to be brutally honest, it has really felt like pushing this massive boulder up a hill, and you're just pushing and pushing. And sometimes I just, am standing there leaning against the boulder for, probably too long sometimes. Like, but it's been tough. I'm really believing and trusting that we're just, before you and I started recording, we were talking about kind of where we're at now. And I'm really believing that as we move into this next season, even just before this year ends and moving into 2021, that things are really going to take off for Terminator. But yeah, Jade, it's been freaking tough. It's been tough.
I bet. And of course, through this, you figured, well, let's start a podcast.
Yeah.
And I saw, I mean, I think a couple really good things. I mean, obviously Jason Luan, I mean, he's my MP here in Alberta, gave you a really good recognition on Twitter, which helped. And of course, your podcast, I think, was number 38. I saw that post. Was it, or 30?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and at one time we were 31 actually in all of Canada. So
Nice.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and that's great. So why don't you tell us a little bit why you started your podcast? What's the name? Where people can find it?
Well, the podcast, I mean, COVID helped with that.
Yeah.
Because just, as all of us, just, at home, being shut down, having a little bit of time. It also gave me time to just reflect on even just mostly my own personal goals and things that I want to still be doing. And so it just kind of gave me time for that. And so in that, like, because we have Terminator, we have the foundation, we have, that's moving. But there were other issues and things that I care very deeply about, that I have cared very deeply about since my early 20s, and stuff like that. And I just felt like, how do I start another foundation? Like I didn't know what to do. And so that's sort of where the podcast came out, because I wanted to be able to start talking and shining a light on some of these other issues that I care about. And then so that's where sort of the podcast was birthed in that. And so it's the Ordinary Courage podcast. And we just launched our second season today, this morning. We just dropped our episode 13 in our second season with Jordan Witzel with Global News. And so he's leading the charge for season 2. And so so we talk about addiction, we talk about recovery, we talk about sex trafficking, we talk about abuse, we talk about trauma, we just the real stories that we all go through, that we all in some way, shape, or form, like whatever that looks like. And so we're just having hard conversations and just turning the light on some taboo subjects. I just really want to dig these things up, and so that people can really start to walk in freedom and walk, because a lot of these things it's like bondage. It's like being held in bondage, and I know what it feels like to have those things and to walk in those things. And I want to see people set free from that kind of stuff, and to know that there is hope, and there is a way out, and there is a solution, and that they're not alone. Sometimes we go through these things and we think like, oh my gosh, if anyone knew, like, if people knew. And just to realize that, well, actually, yeah, a lot of people do know, and they're going through it too. You're not alone. So, yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, and taking that first step is so very difficult for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just something, and I know you and I are going to be hosting a community now, a mental wellness event here in December, which Krista hosts, and it's the third annual, and you'll see us probably promoting it here over the next few months. And I think that people, I think the stigma of having the shame behind it is slowly, not fast enough in my opinion, but slowly starting to leave our society, and realize that and people like yourself sharing your story and saying, hey, look what I've done. Yeah, you know what? There's been a lot of bumps in the road. It's not just I'm going and I've been great for X amount of years. It's not easy. There's so many opportunities to fall back into your old way of life and finding your addictions, but it is important to substitute that addiction for something else. And as you said, telling your story about doing a triathlon, I mean, that's a whole different rush, I guess, if that's the right word, when people are feeling it. It's so great. So thank you again for starting this. And again, for anybody that wants to find out more information, please click in the comment section on the Terminator Foundation. You'll be able to find out all the information that you need there. I know you briefly touched on what's next for you. You said 2021 is going to be a great season for Terminator Foundation. So why don't you share what your next steps are for the foundation?
Well, we're working on getting our CRA, and just like you and I were talking before we were recording, that we're actually going to be doing that at a national level, because I really see Terminator going national. And then we're working closely with our government too, and Minister Luan and his team and stuff like that. And we're, believing for a grant with them to just help support, just our young people and going through, because as we all know too, COVID has really heightened, I guess you could say, just addiction, in our communities and across our province. And so we want to be a part of that solution in getting supports for people. And so we're looking forward to doing that and working with our government on just moving that forward, getting people the support that they need. And so, yeah, that's part of where we're headed.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know there's so many of us out there that will help. And if anybody else wants to help, again, just reach out to Vanisha, and she'd be glad to take any help that she can get. I know that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I always ask the same question at the end of our conversation, but I kind of want to put a little twist on yours. So if you had one piece of advice for somebody that is really out there and wants help, what should their first step be?
Well, reach out. Don't try to do it alone. Absolutely. We need support. And no one can recover on their own, and we're not meant to. And that's even for people, even if you're not struggling with a substance use disorder, we're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to do life alone. And so, especially when you're trying to overcome something that has hindered you and held you back, and been life altering for you, just like a substance abuse issue can do. And so just don't do it alone. Yeah. And don't give up. I totally believe that if you are above ground, you can recover fully, 100% recover. I firmly believe that. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's great advice. I mean, we I see the hashtag stronger together. We're in this together. We're not alone. You're not alone. Whatever what you want to do. I can't agree with that any more than the way you said it, because it is so important. And there's always somebody out there to listen, to help you, and, be by your side through anything that you are going through, whether it's an addiction or mental illness or any other type of thing that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Jade. Yeah.
Well, Vanisha, thank you so much for sharing your story, and you're an inspiration to all of us. And we're so passionate. I'm so excited about us hosting.
Me too.
It's going to be fun, and I wish it was in person, but I mean, it's going to have to be an online event for this year, and hopefully 2021 we're back to our little in-person event, and that would be great. So, thank you again, Vanisha, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Well, I hope everybody has a great day, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.